Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you're new here, I'm Raz. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator, and this is a video series about me trying to create my very first children's book. If you haven't seen the previous episode, I suggest you go back and go have a look at that, because that's me just giving you an introduction to my very first approach to creating my own story. So what I'd like to do in these episodes are two things. Number one, I'd like to take you guys through an updated character sheets, just giving you guys of the main characters within the story. And number two, take you through a writing process that I found quite useful, that I found online, and show you how I approached it and applied it to my very own story. Okay, before we go any further, I just wanted to take a step back and just show you guys the visual language and some of the books that I used as a reference moving forward. So I know these are 4 books that are very different. However, I did manage to purchase 3 of them, and I finally got my hands on Rune World. The other 2 obviously being I'm Perfectly Designed and Bluey. Those are the other 2 that I got so far. But I just want to quickly take you through Rune World and give you an idea of what the visual language is. So when I got my hands on this book, I was really excited. I've been a fan of Derek Loughlin for quite a while now, and I know I'm kind of contradicting myself in the sense that I did want to do a comic book, and then I said it's too hard, and then I'm going back to creating a children's book. But I mean, once I really went through the story and looked at the visuals and how he created various scenes, I just felt like I would be doing myself a disservice. And I think looking at the visuals of this one, I was really motivated to create my own. And yeah, so I mean, you can see these panels are quite vibrant in color. They look quite interesting, and I really would like to have my book have a similar feel if possible. Okay, so let's begin. And I think the first thing I would like you guys know is I did make a name change through the process of rewriting. So initially my story was going to be called Monsters in the Dark, and if you watched episode 1, you would have a good idea of why, as Ray, our main protagonist, is a little boy that is afraid of monsters in the dark. But however, once completing speaking to a few friends and reading the story to them, I did come to a conclusion that I was going to change and rewrite the story a bit, just because I had quite a number of odds and ends that I felt that needed to be touched. So after rewriting the story, came up with a new world, and the world I called it Moonland. And as you can see here through these options, eventually I ended up calling the book Monsters of Moonland. And that takes us to our first exercise, which is something that I didn't necessarily work on in this video, but I'm going to be working on in the next one, is recreating the logo design. So these are just temporary logos that I've put in place, not necessarily logos, but just text. But yeah, on the left you can see Monsters in the Dark, and on the right you can see, which is our new name, Monsters of Moonland. So yeah, I just put a couple of references of some of these logos that I really like, and I feel like goes accordingly with the design of the story and the visual language that I'm using. So in the next episode, we'll probably be touching creating these visuals and creating various logo options. It will also be a nice segue into graphic design and some logo design processes. But yeah, I'll definitely share that with you guys in the next process. So next up we have the character design, and what I'm going to quickly just take you through is our main characters within the story and some of the decisions I've made in creating them, and also some of the namings and how I got about doing that. So here we have Ray. Ray's a 7-year-old boy. He is brave in all aspects of his life. He's quite outgoing. He loves karate. He loves space. He's very intrigued by space as well. But the one weakness Ray has is he's afraid of the dark, and his fear of the dark can be quite crippling to him. But this is a story about Ray and how he overcomes that fear and uses his bravery to help others. And yeah, that's pretty much Ray in a nutshell. These are some old character sheets of who Ray, or the development of Ray at least. You can see the very first idea of Ray in the bottom left corner, and then On the far right is the version of Ray that I ended up using and the one that I'm using today. So here's a character sheet of Ray, some expressions I did of him. I ended up making him with brown hair, even though I did try using various other colors. And I want him to be quite simple and relatable. He doesn't have anything fancy. All that he has is a basic yellow tee with a sun on it, just to emphasize that Ray is the light of the story. And then he has a pair of jeans and a pair of Vans on, and that's pretty much Ray in a nutshell. So next up we have Ray's sidekick, formerly known as Mr. Twinkles. But due to the rewriting of the story, I changed a few things, and I was looking for names that represented something bright, like a star or the sun, or just something to do with planets or anything along those lines. And there was a few that I liked, but I ended up going with Nova, which I thought was quite cool. So let's talk about Nova for a second. Nova is Ray's best friend. She follows him wherever he goes. She does everything he does. She's quite playful and quite cheeky. So initially, in my initial first draft of the story, Mr. Twinkles was a black cat, due to him looking similar like the Moonas, because as you'll see later on, Moonas has some element to them having black colored skin, and I initially wanted him to look like one of them, but due to the restructuring of the story, that was no longer required. And then I thought, this is a nice opportunity to add my very own cat Nima into the story. So Nova is directly based off my cat Nima, as you can see, because she's ginger and Nova's ginger. But yeah, you'll notice that Nova has two forms. So on Earth, she's just your average ginger cat. However, once she lands up on Moonland, you can see she ends up on 2 feet. She's able to talk, she's able to walk, and yeah, so you'll notice in the story there are certain elements and certain individuals that go through a transformation. Not everybody does, some of them do, and Nova happens to be one of them. Okay, next up we have Moonas. So in the previous episode, I explained Moonas and a little bit about their anatomy and who they are and how they came to be. However, things have changed. Like I said, I keep on mentioning I've rewritten, but this is just a sheet to give you an idea of the initial design of Moonas, and which I'm still currently in use. But just to give you a little bit of background, Moonas are creatures of light. They live on the moon, and they have a translucent skin, which allows you to see the light within. Moonas don't eat, as they get the energy source from the moon's light, and that's the light that shines within them. However, when Moonas get scared, as you can see here, their skin tenses up and they lose their translucency and becomes harder, and they basically become black, and that allows them to hide away a bit easier in the darkness of the moon. So that's just a little bit about Moonas. But I'm going to take you through some of the various Moona characters that we will touch on in the story. So firstly, here are 3 main characters, Moona characters that we will be introduced with in the story. I'd like to call them Spot and the boys. So there are 3 characters. These 3 characters are the ones that would help, that will journey with Ray. So you have 3 types. You have your scout, your assassin, and your guardian. So I just gave a brief explanation about the 3 roles and how I thought about these 3 characters and the different names. So just to give you a quick visual about what they look like, and then I'll just come back to this one just so you have a better idea. So here we have Spot, Shadow, and Tank, which is the names that I eventually went with, but I'll go quickly back just to show you. But just to give you a little bit of background to who they are and what they're able to do. So Spot is our leader of the group. He has a slight spot under his chin, as you can see, which is why they call him Spot, but it also has to do with his personality and his ability. So Spot is a very outgoing, exploracious, adventurous type of character, very brave, very similar to Ray, but on the other hand, Spot is one of those characters that if you think of Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, I like to think of Star-Lord being a mimic of who I'm trying Spot to be. Very good leader. However, his overconfidence can get you into trouble and he can become clumsy in certain scenarios. But that's Spot to a degree. Spot is very aware of his surroundings. He's very, like I said, adventurous, etc. Then you have Shadow on the left. So Shadow, as you can see, has a darker skin tone, but that is the ability that Shadow has gained through years of training his mind and his body. Shadow, like I mentioned, Moonas, when they get afraid or when they get in certain emotional states, their skin color goes dark. Now Shadow's manipulated this to use to his advantage, and he's trained his body and mind to able to manipulate his skin tone and his skin density, allowing him to turn dark at will, and he uses it to his advantage when he fights. He lurks in the shadows like a ninja and assassin. Then on the right hand side we have your big boy of the group, which is Tank. I still need to design Tank's shield because I want him to be like a paladin type of character. He wields a shield and a hammer, and paladin is your guardian, which was his previous role or his role in the village. Tank was the one that was in charge of the chambers of the Darklands, and he's set out on a mission to join Spot and Shadow to recapture the Darkland after the Darklands escape. So yeah, just so you get an idea of the three of them here, you can see the type of names and how I thought about going it. So on the left hand side you can see Scout or exploration characters often have names that reflect agility, sharp senses, and a connection to nature or the journey ahead. So that's Spot. That's just a description of who Spot is. I thought of various different names, and then Scout was the name that I liked, but I thought Scout, younger kids might not know what the Scout is, etc. But then I thought, okay, Spot makes sense. Spot is similar to Scout, and I thought Spot, wanted to keep it simple and make it obvious. So instead of Scout, why not Spot? He's good at spotting things, he's good at noticing things, and that was the idea behind Spot and how his character design with the spot in his face came to be. Then your assassin character. Assassin characters usually lurk in the shadows and they invoke mystery, danger, and stealth. And these are the various names that I came up. So the ones in blues are the ones that I like Noctis, Shadow, and Onyx. I like the name Onyx because it's Blackstone, and I thought it was cool. And then when I did some research, I saw that in Persian tales, Onyx is referred to as a protector of evil, which I thought was very cool. But once again, this being considered a children's type of comic, I wanted to keep everything as simple as possible, so I stuck with Shadow. So Shadow is a fast and nimble warrior who fights with speed and focuses on lurking in the shadows. So that's more or less Shadow and how I chose his name. Then the Guardian, which is Tank. Guardian characters often embody qualities of honor, strength, protection, and unwavering loyalty. So that's pretty much who Tank is, and here's a few of the names that I had chosen for him. So I just wanted to keep things obvious, as he has a hammer and a shield, and he's the guardian of the Darkling Chamber. So yeah, so that's how I came about with these three guys, and yeah, I'm so excited for you guys to meet them. Okay, next up we have our sage, or our old wise man of the story, which I initially call the Elder Moona. I'm not going to go too much into the Elder, as I don't really have much on the Elder at this point. I do have a design that I went with eventually, and I didn't finalize his name, but these were some of the options that I was looking at. I'm not really sure if I'm happy with the names, but these are more of the ideas that I was thinking. But yeah, so just to give you an idea of what the design ultimately ended up with, as you can see here, There's your normal Moona, and then I kind of initially in the first story, the elder was the previous king and became and passed the crown down, but that I kind of changed, like I said. And then these are more of the ideas of two of the ideas. There were a few others, but these are the two that I like the most. I was gonna kind of like go with a whole traditional tribal type of look for theme for like the elder, but then it didn't really fit the rest of the design, because I wanted the elders to be like the ones in tune with nature and the ones that give off knowledge and all of that. But then I thought like I'm gonna make a council of elders, and they're gonna have like some type of garment that goes with it. So I'm kind of going with the one in the middle at this point. So that's basically the elder. There are few elders, however this is the main one that we will focus on in the story. Okay, now we come to one of the most interesting parts of the story, which is the royal Moona. So in this story, the royal Moona is our princess, our queen, the leader of all Moonas. So I will in the next episode give you guys an idea of how the life cycle. I'll speak a little bit about the Moona species a bit more. However, just so that you can wrap your head around it, if you think of like ants, our royal Moona is our queen, and she provides for the rest of them in terms of moonlight. So the moon depends on her for moonlight, and the Moonas depend on the moon for an energy source. So she keeps everything together. So yeah, so these were a number of names that I did some research on. I ended up liking two, which was Lunessa and Lunara. I did want to simplify it to Princess Luna, which is what I eventually used. But yeah, I'm still stuck between Luna and Lunara. So, Princess, let's just say Queen Luna at this point. There's quite a lot to take in with regards to the princess or the queen. So, the royal life cycle is a bit different to that of an average Moona. The average Moona is born and goes through age and then dies off and becomes light. And however, the main royal is a form of reincarnation. So she is, like you can see here, she's a small little girl version of herself, a child. She grows into a teen and then she becomes an adult. Now that is half of the life cycle of a queen or a royal Moona. But yeah, I'll take you through the darkling and how the darkling relates to the queen. So here you can see I basically tried to do a quick diagram of what the royal Moona's life cycle looks like. So it's a continuous loop for the species. So you can see here that the queen is a little girl, then she becomes a princess, and then she ages and matures into an adult. And then what happens at the end of a life cycle, I haven't really figured out time, but I did write here 1,000-year life cycle, but I need to figure out how I'm going to divide the final stages of her. So basically what happens to a queen at the end of a life cycle, she slowly deteriorates and loses her light. And this is what we in the story becomes known as the end of days. So this is why there is something where Tank's role comes in, is where they the royal Moona basically imprisons herself for the end of days, and she becomes this darkling form. So here, as you can see on this side, she becomes an anti-Moona, which is still in humanoid form, and the darkness takes over. She basically loses her light, and this is almost like an eclipse type of thing that you can think of. It happens every 1,000 years, and this is the explanation of how the eclipse happens. But in this world, the moon, there's no eclipse where it goes around the sun, or maybe it could be, but I didn't really flesh that out completely. But yeah, so basically the royal Moona, or the queen, becomes a darker version of herself, and then a bad aura or a darker aura comes around her, and then she fully forms into the darkling, which is the monster. So she is actually the anti-hero of the story. She is the villain of the story. She is the monster of the story. And the thing with the darkling is you just need to ride out time, and you just need to, within time, she will dissipate and become a reincarnation of herself. The only other way to speed up that process is to physically kill her or to beat her in battle. Other than that, you just need to imprison her and keep her in confinement for a long period of time until the time passes. And that's basically the life cycle of a royal Moona. So I know at the beginning of this video I said there will be two things that I'm going to mention, the character design and the writing process. But because of the little bit in-depth and a little bit lengthy process that I just took you through in terms of the character design, I think I'm going to cut the video here and then I'll do a small video of the writing process separately. But if you made it this far, I really appreciate you taking out your time. If you've enjoyed the video, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Like I always say, it goes a long way. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.